Sup, everyone? It's Timmy B and Joey D back at it again for the Flea Flicker with Joey D and Timmy B. And welcome to our AFC South off-season outlook. And my apologies, we had a little bit of delay between the NFC South and the AFC South. Joe went on a much-needed vacation back home. I unfortunately tested positive, so I was inside for about a week and a half. But we are back at it, my friend. Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Timmy B. Like you said, got a much needed vacation just to come back home to DMV, see the boys. So, that was awesome. Got to hang out with a lot of my good friends. Brought our man Tub, Trenton Hunter up to Maryland for the first time. It's the farthest north he's ever been. So it was a really fun experience to kind of bring him around. And just kind of show him where I grew up, meet a couple of my other friends who he hadn't gotten a chance to meet yet. So it was a blast. I'm tired though. I've had a couple recovery days. Been up a lot later than I normally am.
Yeah, absolutely, and can't wait to meet them in a couple of weeks for somebody's bachelor party. I don't know whose it would be, but Joe, the legal tampering and free agency has actually started this week, and I told you to just only have a handful because there's dozens and hundreds of signings, agree tos, trades, all this stuff. Everybody is moving around. We could definitely talk for a whole day's worth of 24 hours to discuss all the free agent signings, and we will be getting to them once we get to the divisions. But are there any one to two maybe that really stuck out to you? I mean, the Patriots are signing everybody like they have unlimited money. The Washington football team making some good moves as well. And then some teams like the Steelers, Ravens, and Colts that we'll talk about later this episode who haven't really done anything. So, I mean, any one to two signings or anything that like really stuck out to you that you're like, I got to talk about this right now, Tim. Screw the AFC South. We got to talk about this team making the sign.
I mean, like you said with the Washington football team, I really like the Ryan Fitzpatrick and Curtis Samuel signing. I mean, Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel were teammates, wide receiver duos. Yeah, a lot of speed on the outside there. When they were at Ohio State and now they're back in Washington together. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is a quarterback who loves to, just kind of chuck it down the field and just throw it up there. So I think this is the perfect signing for Washington to have, the best possible chance for their offense to be, a little bit more accountable, with the defense standing up and be able to kind of shoulder their half of the load as well. So I really like that by Washington. And then, like you said, with the Patriots, I mean, two former Eagles getting a lot of money. I mean, Jalen Mills, a 4-year, I don't remember the number, but it was a lot more than the Eagles were ever going to pay.
Yeah.
And then Nelson Aguilar, a 2-year deal as well. I mean, those are two guys who had pretty good games against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And I think Bill Belichick, noticed that, remembered it. And, I think it's Patriots are signing a lot of people. It's crazy. I mean, they're gearing up for next year. They're coming back with a vengeance. Outside of that, I'm just a little surprised with what the Raiders are doing, cutting their entire offensive line, trading Rodney Hudson, and then just go and sign Kenyon Drake. So you have a good backup running back to Josh Jacobs, I guess. So I don't know what they're doing over there. But
it's crazy.
Their last offseason was really bad too in hindsight. So
yeah, and the Raiders have had questionable drafts as well since Mike Mayock has taken over. And that was probably my one big surprise is that they kind of tore up this fantastic offensive line and then signed Kenyon Drake. And right before I hopped on, Matthew Berry was talking about the fantasy implications for both Drake, Josh Jacobs, as well as Chase Edmonds in Arizona. And he was saying that Josh Jacobs was 46 in fantasy points per touch. And he said in games that he got under 20 touches, he was only averaging 10 points. Adding Kenyon Drake to the mix, Josh Jacobs is not going to be that workhorse that we all thought he might have been going into this year, getting those 25 to 30 carries like Leonard Fournette did when he was in Jacksonville and just running like crazy. Now Kenyon Drake's blowing it up, and Kenyon Drake had one of the most goal line touches and goal to go, at least being on the field. So that's very interesting. Russell Wilson, he's staying a Seattle Seahawk. Apparently, the Bears offered like 3 first rounds, like 2 seconds and a third for Russell Wilson, but they got Andy Dalton instead. But I think you nailed it too. I think the Patriots signing everybody, and we'll talk about that with the AFC East. I have a very hot take that they might be trying to emulate the Ravens, especially after signing the 2 tight ends, re-signing Cam Newton. Potentially, they might be drafting a nice young dual threat quarterback, we'll say, and trying to emulate that run game and that run offense that the Ravens have, and the Washington football team as well. And we'll all talk about that when we get there. But Joe, are you ready to talk about the AFC South?
Oh, I mean, who doesn't love this division? I mean,
Yeah.
so much fun stuff to talk about. So let's get into it.
Absolutely. Well, starting off with the team that won the division, the Tennessee Titans, they had a pretty decent year. They went to the AFC Championship game 2 years ago. We don't talk about that anymore. Last year, they did win the division. They lost to the Ravens in the wild card, thank goodness.
We do talk about that.
We can talk about that for sure. And they've had quite an offseason. I'm just gonna read PFF's transaction counter, or at least these are the important ones. Traded tackle Isaiah Wilson, their first round pick from last year.
Yeah, that was
we know
so
he's
weird.
had some legal troubles and everything like that, and only got a 7th rounder back to the Dolphins. So great deal for Miami. They cut Malcolm Butler. Take that, Malcolm Butler, you piece of trash. They cut Kenny Vaccaro. They cut Adam Humphries, Chris Milton, Adoree Jackson. Take that, Adoree Jackson. And their tackle, Dennis Kelly. However, they did sign edge defender Danico Autry for about 3 years, $21.5 million. They signed Bud Dupree, a huge signing for that defense, one of the top pass rushers in free agency. Kendall Lamb tackle. They signed Janoris Jenkins. They re-signed Jayon Brown. So they bolstered up their defense. But my big thing is they lost Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis in free agency. And right now, I don't like this offense with just having Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown. That's why they were so successful. They could play action, and you had no idea who was getting the ball. It could have been A.J. Brown. It could have been Corey Davis. It could have been Jonnu Smith off the play action. And now it's just A.J. Brown. So they need a couple of weapons, whether it's a tight end or another receiver, to get them going. But, Joe, what are your thoughts on the Tennessee Titans and the moves that they've made so far this offseason, and where do you see them going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as worried about the offense, I think, as you are. I think Corey Davis is overrated. I mean, there were so many weeks where he would just completely disappear. And I mean, he was a top 10 draft pick, and he never showed up he never became that top 10 pick. I mean, in his second or third year, AJ Brown was already overtaking him as the number one wide receiver. And Jonnu Smith, I like him. I mean, he's athletic. But I think he is replaceable. He was kind of injury prone, and I think that if you can find a competent number 2 wide receiver and number 1 tight end either via the draft or in free agency. I mean, or in trades. I mean, Zach Ertz is available for trade if the Titans really feel like they need to, go make a move. Did Jared Cook sign with the Titans?
I believe he just actually signed with the Chargers, or I think he went to LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I thought for a second it might have been the Titans, because I thought that Zach Ertz would get traded to the Chargers. That would have made a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, I think that their offense will be fine. I think that there's options to kind of help them out in those 2 spots. I'm a little bit more worried about their defensive back situation. I mean, you listed 3 names that were starters that all got cut between Malcolm Butler, Adoree Jackson, Kenny Vaccaro. I mean, outside of who is it? Kevin Byard?
Kevin Byard. I'm looking at it right now, Joe. Their next one listed in terms of cap space is Christian Fulton, and I believe he was a rookie last year.
Yeah,
he's a very young one. So, and then I mean, Amani Hooker.
He was getting a lot of buzz in the draft. I mean, maybe they like Christian Fulton. I don't know. I think he was a 2nd round draft pick.
Yeah, 2nd round pick out of LSU. So he
went after Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, right. So I mean, but like you're saying, Byard is a fantastic safety, no doubt about that. But then, right as it stands, when your number 1 defensive back is just a 2nd-year guy, that's still not a good sign.
Yeah. So I mean, what about Patrick Peterson? Where did he sign?
He went to the Vikings.
Vikings, that's right. Okay. I keep thinking it's the Titans for some reason.
Joe, there's been so many signings and everything. You're just lucky that you named like the 3 people that I know where they signed.
I know. I'm so glad. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, I mean, they got to make some moves at DB. I mean, like there are some corners available. I mean, I don't like Janoris Jenkins very much at this point in his career. I think he's okay. Because you said they brought him in, right?
They did sign him in. The deal was it just says signed Janoris Jenkins.
Okay,
There's
so
no
yeah, I guess we
details.
don't know. Yeah, we
And they
don't know
still
those
have some
yet.
space. They're still top 10. They're still about 23 million in cap space, so definitely some options to make moves.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they got options left, but as it stands right now, DB really stands out to me as a strong position of need. I mean, I think that they'll fall back to earth a little bit next year. I mean, as it stands right now, I would expect them to probably finish second in the division. I mean, hopefully with Bud Dupree and Autry, that pass rush improves. But I mean, if you have no DBs, how does that help you? So and then like we said with the offense, I think there will be a degree of regression from what we've seen from Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry over the last 2 years because it's just not sustainable. I mean,
Right.
at least for
And they
Ryan
lost their
Tannehill
offensive
for sure.
coordinator.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's also a very underrated move. Arthur Smith leaving. So it'll be really interesting to see how that offense functions and how it looks without Arthur Smith compared to how we see him running in Atlanta. So yeah, I mean it's gonna be an interesting season, but Titans lost a lot of core pieces, and I think they're gonna take a step back next year.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some secondary people that are still available. I mean, Malcolm Butler is listed number two, but that freed up 10 million cap space, so he could come back for a
He
cheaper
could,
deal.
yeah,
But AJ Bouye is available, Justin Simmons, Casey Hayward, Jasmine Trufant. They're all in their low 30s, but they're still out there and still available. And we'll see if they can get one cheap. And you nailed it with Corey Davis, how he was kind of under not overrated, I would say, and he really underperformed, and that's my philosophy too. I mean, I I was never a fan of the Prashad Perriman pick for the
right.
Ravens, and even Corey Davis. I loved Corey Davis, but at the end of the day, Rashad Perriman went to the University of Central Florida. He should not be a first round wide receiver because he didn't go up against a talent. Corey Davis went to Western Michigan, didn't play against top talent. If you look at some of the top receivers in the league and some of the first and even second round picks, even like an AJ Brown and DK Metcalf, they went to Ole Miss. Was Ole Miss any good at football those years? Absolutely not. But they were playing SEC defensive backs each and every week, and they were still performing. And of course, when you're at Western Michigan or Central Florida, obviously there's a pretty good chance you might go 8 for 100 and 2 touchdowns every week. Let's see you do that against the Patrick Petersons and the Christian Fultons and all these LSU, Alabama defensive backs as well. So I'm all on board of if you're taking a first round or even second round wide receiver, they better be to a Power Five conference for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
So definitely agree with that. And I do think that they do need another option offensively, just in that play action game as well. I mean, Derrick Henry's still going to do Derrick Henry things, so will AJ Brown, but they need that guy on the other side or that tight end. That way, AJ Brown's not being double covered or being spied on for the entire game. And then you
right.
nailed it defensively. It all comes down to the defensive backs. Their pass rush is pretty good. They got a solid D line, Bud Dupree. That's going to be a lot of fun for them. So they do need a little bit of work, and there's still plenty of time, Joe. But any final words on the Tennessee Titans?
I think that's all I really got there. I mean, I like Mike Vrabel. I think he's a great coach.
Same.
This will be an important season for him
Mm-hmm.
to kind of try to rally the troops and just bring the team together, even though it's going to be a very different team than it has been over the last couple of years.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now it's time to talk about the team that came in second place, the Indianapolis Colts, who lost in the wild card to the Buffalo Bills. As we alluded to before, we got on a recurring guest and great friend of the program, Mr. Trent, to talk about his Indianapolis Colts and Carson Wentz. And let's cut away to us talking with our friend Tub Tub. And we are now welcomed on by recurring guest Trent, our resident Indianapolis Colts fan. Trent, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing fantastic, man. Just didn't do a whole lot today. Kind of an off day for me. I'm about to go into work now. Just finished watching the new Justice League, so just been a real low key day. Kind of like the Colts in the off season. Not too much going on, so yeah, it's been nice. It's been pretty nice.
Absolutely, man. And the Colts, they were in a position to win the division. Unfortunately, the tiebreaker didn't go their way. They found themselves in a wild card, still a playoff team with Phillip Rivers at the helm, who is now retired or moved on. He retired, whatever. But you guys lost to the Buffalo Bills in the wild card round. And like you said, Trent, not too much happening in the offseason. You did trade for Carson Wentz. You did re-sign Marlon Mack. But other than that, no moves that I'm seeing. You have lost a couple of people. But you have one of the most available cap spaces still in the NFL. So there's definitely opportunities to grow. But as a Colts fan, kind of wrap up the 2020 season. Do you think it was a success with the Phillip Rivers experiment? And do you see some success in the future with Carson Wentz? I mean, obviously losing in the wild card, you didn't win the Super Bowl, but there has to be some positives for making the playoffs at least.
Well, I guess the big thing was the Phillip Rivers. I was never was a big fan of him from the start. I saw the season before this one, like, he just threw mad interceptions, and I was not on board with that coming to the Colts. But, he did take us to the wild card. We did lose. I mean, but the Bills were on fire last season, so it's kind of, I don't really want to take too much away from him. But with him being out of there, I'm glad to see that. I do like Carson Wentz coming in. Although he was pretty bad his last few seasons with the Eagles, I just know that he wasn't really wanting to be there. So, new space, new team, new atmosphere. He's got a lot of people that he knew there from Philadelphia. So I feel like he'll fit in pretty well. He picked out his number. He got number 2. I'm debating whether or not I might want to pull the trigger and buy one of those. If he does well, I'll probably do it. I'll do it. I might. But, I'm glad to see Carson come through. What else? I was looking through some things earlier. I guess right now I don't really have any players in mind on who to gun for, but I think we do need to probably suit up we need to get some more defensive ends. I know it was like Houston and Autry are both on, they're both free agents now. So kind of fill those gaps. I feel like it might be a good place to start, but I don't know. I can't think. There's no really deep voids I feel that needs to be filled right now. So
left tackle, because Costanzo retired. You need a new left tackle.
Okay, so we need to fill that as well. That is right. I remember talking to Sarab about that. Yeah, that just dawned on me as well. Yeah,
I'm surprised that they haven't signed like Eric Fisher or Mitchell Schwartz or something. I mean, I guess Mitchell Schwartz is a right tackle, but
they're known for paying their offensive linemen. I mean, 3 of their top 6 or 7 people that are affecting the salary cap are their 2 guards and their center. So, and they've got the money. Yeah, they have the money. So it makes sense. And Carson Wentz has to be happy that some of the top paid players on the team are offensive linemen, but your left tackle, right tackle, you got to solidify that. I mean, they're going to be good with Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack running up the middle and in between the guards, but you got to get some protection in tackle area.
True. Well, yeah, I mean, just like I said, I don't really have too many players in mind to gun for. I mean, I didn't really keep up too much with like a lot of the, I don't know. It's just that's a player position I don't really know too much about, you know what I mean? But they definitely, I know we've got a lot of studs in front office there that know what they're doing. So just kind of really eager to see what pans out. But I'm psyched. I'm psyched to see Carson though. I've seen him do some pretty good stuff for the Eagles. He's pretty elusive, pretty slippery. So hopefully he can bring some of that over to Indy with him.
Trent, were we friends in the 2017 season?
When they won?
When we won the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I got snaps of you freaking out. Yeah, I got snaps.
Oh, where were you? Why didn't I watch the Super Bowl with you? I watched it with Burdell.
I was there, bro.
That's your first mistake right there.
Were you at the Super Bowl?
Yes, bro. There? I have snaps of you. Yeah, you were at the crib.
All right. I might be tripping. I was hammered. It was a great day. But
you just up and started screaming. So
I was running and jumping up and down my bed a lot. So Trent was there. Trent got to watch a lot of Eagles games in 2017 with me, and really see Carson Wentz at his best. It's I don't think he's going to get back to that 2017 form, especially because, the Colts still do have a couple significant holes they got to fill. But, Trent also watched, a little bit of the 2020 Carson Wentz over here with me and Brooke. And it was rough. It was a rough year. But so, I mean, that was such a low, and, 2017 was such a high. I just don't think that, that's either of those extremes are what we're going to see out of him now in Indianapolis. Because also, like you said, mentally, he wasn't there this year. So I'm happy to see, one of my favorite players over the last couple of years, pretty much until now, go to a team like the Colts who, Have a good bit of Eagles there, and a couple of my good buddies, Trent right here, and my other buddy Sarab, both Colts fans. So on behalf of Joseph Dennis and Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you guys. You can have it now because I don't have any freaking need for it. Let me freaking tell you now. It would be so cool if this is gonna just come and hit Trent in the head. Ha!
Boom, something. Yeah.
Well, and the good news too is Joe and I was talking about this right before we hopped on. Is that the Colts don't necessarily need that 2017 Carson Wentz 13-3, 14-2 team. The current state of the Texans, Jaguars, and even the Titans, more or less, this could be like an NFC East situation where it's the first one to 8-8, 9-7, maybe even a very shaky and fraudulent 10-6 can win the division. So it's not like you're hopping into the AFC West or the AFC East with the Bills or the AFC North with Steelers, Browns, Ravens. The Colts can win this division at 8-8, 9-7. So they're right now, they're not asking for Carson Wentz to be 2017 MVP Carson Wentz, just be slightly above average, and we'll still make it to the playoffs.
But then what are you hoping for? So like I think I asked this question to you when it happened, Tim. But now I'll pitch it to Trent as a Colts fan. If the 2021 Colts have a similar, let's say they win the division at 10-6, and they're like the number 3 or 4 seed, and they play in the wild card round, and they lose in the first round to the Bills or the Ravens, something like that. They get knocked out in the first round again. Is the trade for Carson Wentz a success or is it a failure? It's a tough question because he's also got like 2 years on his deal, and they could extend him, so you never know. But just kind of in a short-term lens, how would you see that?
Well, I guess it would probably be a fail. I feel like that's a harsh word to use, but it's like, I feel like he didn't do his job. I don't expect him to come in here and just take us directly to the Super Bowl. I know he's not Tom Brady, but I don't know. I guess I can't remember. I was looking at Philip Rivers' stats. I'm gonna make up a number. If he threw 30 touchdowns, he had like 15 interceptions. So if Carson can do something better than that, I guess in my mind it would be a little bit more of a win. But I still want to get past the wild card. I still want to kind of get a few rounds into the playoffs, or I feel as a Colts fan, I would know if it's a win or success. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I'll be like, okay, I feel more comfortable watching these games. I'm not sitting on edge as much. I know that's kind of a weird answer, but he's got to take his wild card for it to be a win. But if he throws less interceptions, I think it's a win too.
Well, that was my argument with the Buccaneers and Tom Brady 2 years ago. Jameis Winston went 30-30, and they went 7-9. And I said if you took half of those 30 interceptions and turned half, so 7, 8 into touchdowns, you're looking at 37, 38 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. That Buccaneers team is probably 10-6 and making a run for a Super Bowl. And of course, Tom Brady's the greatest, but it's not like this team was like 2-14. Tom Brady comes in and magically they go to the Super Bowl. There was still talent, and there was still team around it. And Joe, to answer your question, I think big picture, I think failure, but it also depends on the season. Like Trent was saying, if the stats are there, and if it was maybe an up and down season, or they were a solid 11-5, last second field goal or an overtime playoff loss in round 1 or their first playoff game, maybe you're looking at it as success, and being like, hey, the ball just didn't roll our way that one time or that one game, and it unfortunately ended our season. So I think big picture failure, but once you start getting down to the nitty gritty, it might be a success.
Yeah, I guess for me, like the way I look at it is, every team's ultimate goal is to get to the Super Bowl and win. So obviously, if you don't get there, or if you don't do it, then it's a failure. But at the same time, that's what the Colts are built for right now. That's what they're trying to do. Yes, Carson Wentz isn't a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, but the majority of his salary, at least for these next 2 years, is not on the Colts books. So, they have, like we've said, so much cap space. They have such a weak division right now as well. This is their window. This is their opportunity. And, so if it doesn't work out and, these 2 years and you've been 7-9, 8-8, or 9-7, you make the playoffs. Say you make the playoffs 2 years and you lose in the first round 2 years in a row, and you want to move on from Carson Wentz. How do you figure out how to upgrade? And at that point, when you might have made the playoffs and be picking in the 20s, or you just missed out on the playoffs and you're picking in the high teens, and you don't have that top 5, top 10 pick, or the ammo to go up and get that.
Maybe
QB.
that's why they haven't done anything this offseason, because they're probably thinking, hey, last year we were 10-6 with Phillip Rivers. We made it to the wild card. We could have won the division depending on tiebreakers. So maybe that's why they're a little bit quiet right now, because maybe they're saying, hey, let's just run it back with kind of currently what we have, a couple signings here and there, and the draft, see how far we can get with Carson Wentz. And maybe next offseason is that one where they use all of this cap space, especially when the cap will rise, because there will be actually fans and more revenue for the NFL. So maybe it's more of an experiment, being like, let's see what we need this year, and then next offseason is our let's spend all of our money, let's make a run, let's run it back.
That's possible. I could see that too. I could see that too. That's a good way of looking at it.
They're just sitting on a lot of money. So I mean,
I'm surprised they didn't go after. I'm surprised they didn't go after Trent Williams. He just signed like a massive contract for an old left tackle, like a huge long contract. It was like a 6-year deal.
Yeah.
Like, how old is he? He's like,
I didn't see
he's
that.
like 37, like 36, something like that. Yeah, the 49ers re-signed him to a massive contract. So I mean,
he's 32. He will be 33 in July.
Oh wow. I thought he was older than that. Wow. Yeah, he's not on that Jason Peters level yet.
No.
That old Main Street.
But I could see Jason Peters to the Colts as your left tackle. That can make sense.
I would be hype about that. Yeah.
You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be hype about that, man. Man's is injury prone. Right?
But yeah,
he's so old, Like he keeps trying to play. It's like, dude, just retire. Like, it hurts to watch because like he's a Hall of Famer for sure.
I was going to say, I feel like he would get the younger guys in gear. I don't know. It's just kind of he is an old man.
I think he'd be a good swing tackle for the Colts or for someone, but I just don't think he's going to sign that kind of contract. But again, like I'm just like. Trent Williams is the best left tackle on the market, and Colts have a need and the cap space. So I'm very surprised they didn't go after that guy. It'll be really interesting to see, how they continue to kind of monitor that position. And Ty has not been re-signed and signed by anybody. So, I mean, they could bring him back.
Well, based on the wide receiver market, it's probably a good sign Ty is not signed, because there might be another team that's one of us support that might be looking for a wide receiver. So
I know.
Yeah, I don't want to lose Ty.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Trent, we know you got to go to work. So any final words on the current state of the Colts and something that you might want to see in this offseason or looking ahead to next season? Any final words on where you guys are at, and maybe something that you would like to see before the draft or during the draft, after the draft? We'll have you back on for a draft special, but anything that they can do in the short term?
Off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything. But it's the Colts. Don't do anything brash, but I don't see them doing anything like that.
You're like trading for Carson Wentz.
Yeah, wild. Yeah, but
no
I
big deal.
Don't see anything like that. But I don't know. I see that Carson's had some issues with his numbers and whatnot. So just kind of let him know where he's at, but kind of give him a warm welcome. I want him to know that he's, I want him to do well. And so just let him keep getting moved in, warmed in, because I saw that he got his numbers, number 2 and whatnot. So
number 2, copying Jalen Hurts, baby.
Yeah.
All right.
Rent free.
All right, so that's probably a way to determine if it's a success, if he has better stats overall compared to Jalen at the end of the season.
Whoa.
This is a terrible Philadelphia Eagles team. Like, this is a terrible team.
I guess it is.
Colts are a good team around a questionable quarterback. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be good. I just worry that the team around him is going to be really bad.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and Joe, any final words on the Indianapolis Colts? Probably your favorite AFC team right now.
Yeah, I mean, I want Carson to do well too. I want him to do as good as he possibly can without making the Eagles look too bad, but good enough to give us that freaking first-round draft pick, baby. Send it on over. It's so funny. The Colts media was like, we have traded Carson Wentz for a conditional second, or like the Colts account, and then the Eagles are like, we've traded Carson Wentz for a conditional first. Like, it's like both teams are looking at it, in the best possible scenario for their fans. I also thought it was really interesting that at Carson Wentz's intro presser, they announced that no Philadelphia reporters would be allowed to ask questions. This man,
Really?
I don't know.
Fair.
I don't know if
Fair. I wouldn't do that either.
I don't know if he requested this. I don't know if the Colts front office requested this. All I know is it's soft.
I can't wait until week 17 where Schefter tweets out that the Colts need to run like 85 offensive snaps in order for it to still be a second rounder or like a first rounder. They sit Carson Wentz and they go no huddle and they run like 90 plays to make sure it's still they set like the NFL record for most offensive snaps. That way it stays the second round pick.
If they get eliminated early, they will do something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, like we were saying, that Carson Wentz basically needs to play only 13 or 14 games at full length. I mean, it would be crazy, but I think it would be funny to see them trying to set the record for like most offensive snaps week 17 and just go no huddle.
I'd be so pissed.
Interesting.
They get like 3 yards every single play.
Jesus.
Be unreal.
Jesus, that would be nuts.
All right, Trent. Well, thank you so much for hopping on. We will definitely have you back on again as we get closer to the draft for the Colts, and then throughout the rest of the offseason training camp and all that stuff to talk about your Indianapolis Colts and Carson Wentz. But thank you so much, man, for hopping on, and we will see you soon, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. It's been a blast.
Tough. Let's go.
Hey, we'll see you, boys. You have a good one.
And that was it with the Indianapolis Colts and our good friend Trent, Mr. Tubb himself. And Joe, now it's time for team of the offseason, we'll say, maybe even team of last season in terms of moves and PR moves. The Houston Texans, they had quite a year, and they are still having quite an offseason. Deshaun Watson still wants to be traded, potentially getting into some legal trouble right now. We won't talk about that. They got a new head coach, David Culley, which gives the Ravens a third-round pick this year and next year. Thank you so much, David Culley. And they've had quite an offseason as well. They signed Mark Ingram from the Ravens, which makes sense. Culley was, on our offense running backs coach, so makes sense. They signed Christian Kirksey. They re-signed Vernon Hargreaves. They signed Justin Britt, Andre Roberts, Camus Grugier-Hill. They traded for tackle Marcus Cannon. They traded linebacker Benardrick McKinney to Miami for Shaq Lawson. They cut Brandon Williams, defensive back. They cut quarterback Josh McCown. They cut running back Duke Johnson. They cut center Nick Martin. They cut Senio Clemente. We're only halfway through. They cut J.J. Watt. We know that. They signed Malik Collins. They signed Terrence Brooks, the safety. They signed guard Justin McCray. Signed linebacker Joe Thomas. Linebacker Kevin Pierre-Lewis. They signed quarterback Tyrod Taylor. They signed defensive back Terrence Mitchell and Tavier Thomas. They traded a 2022 seventh rounder to New England for tight end Ryan Izzo. They cut tight end Darren Fells, and they cut their punter Brian Anger. Woo! Joe, that is a lot. And honestly, this team didn't improve with all those offseason moves and all those signs and trades. The big question is, are they going to trade Deshaun Watson? And if so, when will they trade Deshaun Watson?
I think they're going to. I think they have to. I mean, they brought in Tyrod Taylor for, I think, not only is he a good backup, but in the event that Deshaun is either not here and they don't have another QB option available, or he's still on his contract but sitting out and they need a decent QB to play, that's kind of their backup plan there. But, I mean, Deshaun is not playing for the Texans. I mean, that's all there is to it. This is as bad a situation as I've ever seen with, a quarterback and, an organization, to the point where, this is even, it feels even worse than the Le'Veon Bell situation.
Yeah.
So it's real bad, and I just don't see that changing. I mean, how can it at this point? So I think that the pressure is mounting on the Texans to make the trade. And the closer we get to the draft, I think that pressure is going to continue to mount. And ultimately, I believe it's going to be the Carolina Panthers swinging a deal. I mean, they're a team that's kind of been sitting back a little bit in free agency. They have not made many moves
And they
so
restructured
far.
deals with McCaffrey and some of their other top free agents to kind of create
Exactly.
some
They've
more
been
space.
creating more space. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the Panthers are all in on this Deshaun Watson potential option. And, they are just kind of biding their time and waiting to see. I mean, they're going to be pissed if they don't sign anybody and, they miss out on getting Deshaun Watson and, they have to change their plans completely. But I think that they're smart enough to have somewhat of a backup plan in mind there. Because, I mean, let's keep in mind, if they do pull off this trade for Deshaun Watson, it's going to be a massive amount of draft pick capital.
Right.
So if they don't pull off the trade, that's a massive amount of draft capital that they keep. So, they have options to fill, certain holes through the draft. And, I thought they had a pretty good draft last year going all defense. Jeremy Chin was just an absolute beast. So, I think that the Panthers are definitely the team to watch out for. With Deshaun Watson, I think that ultimately he will end up getting traded there. And then for the Texans, it's like because the Panthers have I think the number 9 pick or number 8.
I think they have 8 or 9. They have one of those.
8 or 9. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think that. I think all top 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 6 picks. Hopefully the Eagles are not taking one of them. But
QB factory.
I mean, yeah, allegedly. But I think it was Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport who said you could take that to the bank that four quarterbacks will be drafted in the top 6 this year. And I don't doubt it.
Even if the Texans get that pick 9, they're going to get so much other draft capital where it wouldn't be out of the possibility for them to go from like 9 to 6 to trade with the Eagles or 9 to 5 to take one of those quarterbacks because they'll have multiple firsts. They'll probably have a couple of seconds, maybe a couple of thirds as well. So they will have that capital to move up. And Joe, as we just talked about with Trent, 8-8, 9-7, 10-6 could win this division given the state of every other team. And there's a lot of questions. So let's just assume that they trade Deshaun Watson and they get whatever it is they get. What moves do they need to do? Assuming Tyrod Taylor is the starting quarterback or whoever they might draft. Let's just assume Tyrod Taylor is the starting quarterback. What other moves do they need to make to maybe get to that 8-8, 9-7? Because remember, they won the division 2 years ago and kept winning the division for a handful of years. So what other positions do they need? And I mean, they lost Will Fuller today. So what positions do they need offensively and defensively to say, you know what? We could go 9-7 and probably win this division.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it starts with wide receiver for sure in my mind, because I mean, no matter who you have back there, I mean, right now it's Brandon Cooks. Like, is Kenny still on the roster?
Not to my knowledge.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't. He might be, but even if he is, I mean, Brandon Cooks and Kenny Stills.
Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
Andre Roberts. They signed Chris Moore from the Ravens. So, I mean, there's a handful of guys, but it's certainly not the Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and that Kenny Stills they had.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think out of all those players, Brandon Cooks is the only receiver I'd feel, somewhat confident in. And even him, I mean, he's super injury prone.
Right.
So, I mean, they've got to figure out some pass catcher. I mean, if only, they could go and trade for a guy like a DeAndre Hopkins or something. Oh, wait, they traded him for a second. So, I mean, that's where it starts in my mind. I mean, if you're going to move on from DeAndre Hopkins, you better have a plan in place to, fix that position or get production out of it. And it was Bill O'Brien who made the trade. So, these guys are kind of trying to clean up his mess. But I mean, that's got to be, one of the biggest priorities in my mind, because I mean, there's nothing there. I mean, even if Deshaun comes back, like, there's nothing there, but now on defense, I mean, they've got a bunch of holes as well. I mean, AJ Boye was there. He's gone. JJ Watt is gone. Bernardic McKinney was traded. Like, they got Shaq Lawson, who's okay. I mean, he's a good defensive end.
Underperforming based on his draft position.
Right. And, I'll be interested to see, how he fits in with that scheme. I mean, he was in a really good overall defense with the Dolphins last year and Brian Flores, now going to a Texans defense that he might be the best player on that defense, day one.
Right.
That's not a good thing if Carl or Shaq Lawson is your best player on defense. So, I mean, they've got to figure this out. I mean, it makes too much sense to trade Deshaun Watson. You know, you have all of these holes all over the roster. Trade him for a king's ransom and start rebuilding. I mean, just cut it loose. Like, stop dragging this on for so long. I mean, I don't see any point in it whatsoever and what they could have to gain from it. Because if he comes back and is forced to play and feels like he didn't get what he wants and, you know, doesn't want to be here mentally, he's going to look like Carson Wentz freaking did last year for the Eagles. So, you know, in my mind, it's a no-brainer situation. If your quarterback doesn't want to play here, you can't force him to play here because he's not going to play at, you know, the standards we expect. So, you know, Texans are a mess, an absolute mess. Dumpster fire. Thank God this organization is so laughably and like aggressively bad right now. Otherwise, I think the Eagles would be taking a lot more shit.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And it'll be interesting once they trade Deshaun Watson what it's going to look like, because with Tyrod, he's a very comparable quarterback. So maybe but I think if they trade Deshaun Watson, whether they draft a quarterback this year or maybe they wait until next year to draft somebody, put the pieces around with the rookie head coach. There are zero expectations. Look, just don't go 0-16. We have a rookie head coach. We might have a rookie quarterback, or we might be preparing for the future. Let's use this capital that we just got, build around this quarterback. Then in a year or two, once our head coach is officially has a year or two under his belt, now it's time to start thinking about winning the division. And Joe, now it's time for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who went 1-15, and they started the year 1-0. I predicted 1-15, never a doubt, even after winning their first game. They have a new head coach. I still can't believe it either. But it's always funny in the preseason picks on these websites and newspapers, magazines, and everything. Their worst team is like 4-12, and I'm like, no. There's always going to be a team that's going to be like 1-15 or 2-14. You guys just can't predict that. I was like, but I can.
I thought that best pick of our podcast, definitely by far for the preseason.
Yeah, and the fact that they won their first game, and every week I was like, it's still in play. I have to pick against them, and it happened. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. But they have Urban Meyer. They have the number one pick, which is assuming to be Trevor Lawrence. They also have had a healthy offseason. So let me just read, according to the PFF tracker, what they've done so far. They placed the franchise tag on tackle Cam Robinson. Great move. They signed guard Tyler Shatley. They signed defensive lineman Roy Robertson Harris. That's a fun name. They signed wide receiver Jamal Agnew. They signed safety Ruby Ford. They re-signed edge defender Dwayne Smoot, or Dewan Smoot, however you want to pronounce it. They signed wide receiver Philip Dorsett. They signed running back Carlos Hyde, reuniting him with his college coach Urban Meyer. They signed safety Rayshawn Jenkins. They re-signed former Eagles legend Sidney Jones. They signed tight end Chris Manhertz. That's a fun name. They signed edge defender Jihad Ward from the Ravens. That's a great pick for them. They signed defensive back Shaquille Griffin from the Seattle Seahawks. They signed defensive lineman Tyson Alalu, who they took like number 9 or number 10 many years ago. I believe that's who they traded up when we traded back to draft Joe Flacco, so that was a good move by us. They traded for D lineman Malcolm Brown from the Saints. They signed wide receiver Marvin Jones, great deal. And they just traded tight end Josh Oliver to my Baltimore Ravens for a conditional draft pick. I believe it's later. But, Joe, the key for the Jaguars is all those were sign, re-sign, sign. Whereas everything for the Texans was a couple signings here and there, but it was cut. And I don't think it's a surprise they're probably going to take Trevor Lawrence. So what else do they need to do to build around this young quarterback, Joe? And what would be successful? Because I'm going to be honest. No team is going to go from 1-15 to 11-5 and win the division, no matter who your coach is, no matter who your quarterback is. As I was saying with Trent, it's not like the Buccaneers were 2-14 and Tom Brady came in and magically they became super fantastic. I mean, they were still a good team with the quarterback. So how do the Jaguars measure success this season with a rookie head coach in the NFL, very successful in college, but also a rookie quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're on the right track to being competitive again. I mean, with a lot of these moves, I mean, we've talked about how much cap space that they have. That just disappeared. I'm still here. we talked about, all this cap space that they have and now they're using. I mean, on a guy
Right.
like Shaquille Griffin, I think that's a phenomenal signing for them. Bringing back Tyson Alualu, I love that move. I mean, he had a, resurgence of his career, with the Steelers, bringing in, Malcolm Brown from the Saints. He was a former, I believe, first round or second round pick. He was a high draft pick, if I remember correctly. Um, but I mean, they're bringing in some guys that are, I think, going to be contributors, and they've got some young pieces already there in a DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault,
Mm-hmm.
Josh Robinson, and now Robinson, Carlos Hyde. I think that's a really good duo. I think if they can continue beefing up that offensive line, they've got good skill position players for Trevor Lawrence to throw to, and Urban Meyer to kind of create mismatches with. Could probably use a tight end as well. Number one tight end. So maybe go get a reliable, veteran tight end and Zach Ertz. That'd be cool. Give us a nice draft pick.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll see what happens, but I think that for the Jaguars, if they can win 6 or 7 games this year, I would call that a success. And, I would call that, a very good success and, a team on the rise. I mean, if they win 7 games, I mean, I guess there will be an extra game this year. So,
Right.
Maybe 7 or 8 games. But I mean, Eagles won 7 and 9, and then next year they won the Super Bowl. So you never know. But like you said, it's not going to be 1 and 15 to 11 and 5, or whatever. But I do think that a lot of it will also be a little bit more of like how we feel watching the games. Like like wow, like that was a really close Jaguars game. Like that team got really lucky, or that was a like tough play. Like but they were in great position. Like I think that we're gonna see just a better coach, a little bit more fight and more of an edge to them Jaguars. I don't think it'll be as much fighting as it was a couple years ago with that defense. But I do think that these pieces that they're bringing in, it's young. It's a really young team. That's what all of the moves really kind of stand out to me as. I mean, I feels like Carlos Hyde's like the oldest guy that they brought in. All those guys we listed that they signed and re-signed. I mean, like anybody who's significant, like Shaquille Griffin is young, and they got him on a 3-year deal, and he's good. He's got length. He's a playmaker. So they've got options. I like what Jags are doing, and building for success in the future. I don't think this is going to be their year, but I think in a couple years, with the Titans potentially taking a couple steps back, the Texans being in disarray, and who knows how Carson Wentz is going to do, and if he'll still even be on the team in 2 years. So I mean, 2 years from now, this could be the Jags division for a while. I mean, if Trevor Lawrence is, well, a lot of people think he is, but I don't think so. I don't see it. These Clemson quarterbacks, there's always drama.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny. And I think as a Jaguars fan, if I was one, I would just want consistent and potential, because I think in the last like 15, 16 years, whatever that number is, they picked in the top 10 all but 1 year, the year they went to the AFC Championship game. And I think over half of those 13, 14, 15 years, whatever, they were in the top 5. So it's like, look, I know as a Ravens fan, I hate pick 16. But if I was a Jaguars fan, if I was like, can we just get like go 8-8 and get pick 16 or 17 every year? That would be great.
Right.
And I think you nailed it. That 6, 7, 8 win mark is something that is attainable. And I think a key is Urban Meyer. He was a winner at Florida. He was a winner at Ohio State. Obviously, college is a little bit different than the NFL. But obviously and clearly, he knows how to run a football program. Now, will that translate over to the NFL? We'll see. Nick Saban, pretty unsuccessful in the NFL. Same for Steve Spurrier, 2 other coaches that made the jump. Chip Kelly, another one who made the jump. But I think that there is some sort of more leadership over for Urban Meyer over Doug Marrone that has been happening recently. And again, kind of like the Texans, no expectations. I mean, I don't think anybody is going to say that they're going to go 10-6, 11-5. But could they go 6-10, play a couple of close losses, and say, hey, the Jaguars could be a dark horse team come 2022, maybe even a contender in 2023. Absolutely. And you nailed it. And I think that's a key too, is that they said that we have cap space and we're gonna spend that money because now is the time to build around Trevor Lawrence, and they have still a huge amount of cap space because they don't spend money. So, like we were talking about with the Colts, this year can also be a little bit of experiment, being like, all right, we got one half, we got Trevor Lawrence, let's see how we do. Okay, we went 5-11, a little bit under what we expected. Now, what do we need? Oh, also, we all had this 35, 40 million in cap space. Okay, now we can get Trevor Lawrence those pieces. So I think that's going to be key. And I think the Jaguars are going to be very fun to watch. Hopefully, they can trade DJ Chark to the Ravens. That would be fantastic. But I wouldn't if I was them. And honestly, I don't have too much more about the Jaguars. I mean, they went 1-15. And it's going to be a wait and see. I mean, rookie head coach with Urban Meyer in the NFL, rookie quarterback with Trevor Lawrence, of course, some of the best that college football has seen in the past couple of seasons. But, I mean, at the end of the day, we just don't know. But the AFC South is a winnable division, Joe. Any final words about the AFC South, the Jaguar, any of these teams that we talked about and AFC South?
Hey, a couple of these teams could use a tackle. Did the Ravens trade Orlando Brown yet?
Not yet, because nobody's offering us a first-round pick.
Because that's insane. He's a right tackle trying to pretend to be a left tackle.
Hey, look at the end of the day, he has 1 year left on his rookie deal. I told you, I bet you we went up to him and said, hey, we can trade you to the Jaguars if you want, or your options are the Jaguars or the Giants or us and try to win a Super Bowl. What do you want? He's probably like, Super Bowl sounds great. Yeah. And I think there's enough tape on him as a left tackle where he's going to get paid next year. Not from the Ravens probably, but he will get paid. But the AFC South, a very winnable division. I mean, would I be surprised if the Jaguars do somehow come out on top at 8-8 or 8-9, whatever the 17-game record is? No. But I think it's probably the Colts or the Titans again for them to lose. But I don't think this is going to be what we're seeing with the AFC North or the Buffalo Bills or the Chiefs going 13-3, 14-2. This is going to be that number 4 seed. They're going to be that 10-6, 9-7 team.
Yeah, I don't think any of these teams are making noise in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Maybe an upset because they have the home game, but other than that, I'm
maybe like even that. Like I don't know. It depends on who they play, obviously, but with like the AFC is good. It's good. So, there's a lot more competition there. The cream really rises to the top with the AFC. And, I feel like, the Colts, I'd say the Colts probably have the best chance out of anyone in this division. Mm-hmm. But I'd say, I think we talked about, they're probably like, the 5th best team in the AFC at best. Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Browns.
That's definitely the first tier of teams in the AFC at the current time.
Yeah, the Steelers could be better. The Patriots could be better. The Dolphins could be better.
Chargers. Justin Herbert. We are ignoring them. So
that's
definitely
right.
a lot of potential.
I almost forgot all about them. Hey, Drew Lock and the Broncos could prove me right a year late. We'll see. But yeah, I like I said, I just don't think that any one of these teams is, ready to, make that Super Bowl push as of yet. But, the offseason is still in full gear, baby. We still got a lot of free agency left and then the draft. So, a lot of moves still left to be made that, any of these teams can make.
Absolutely. And definitely excited to kind of get this ball rolling on the offseason. We'll get the ball rolling as we get closer to the draft, training camp. Joe, we got 4 or 5 months before teams are going to show up to camp. So we got plenty to talk about in this time. And who's to say we probably might not do this again and just revisit draft recap, free agent recap as we go ahead to training camp. I believe next week on the schedule, I put down NFC West, but I honestly don't remember. But we're going to the West Coast, probably talking about the NFC West or AFC West. I'll double check and put it in the comments for you guys. But if you are a fan of one of those teams, definitely reach out to us. More than happy to get kind of your insight on what your team has done and what you want them to do with free agency. But Joe, are you excited to put on the shades and go to the West Coast next week?
Is it next week? I thought it's the we're just talking about.
I'm talking about the NFC West. So you're back.
Okay. Yeah. I'm pumped.
I'm working on setting up an interview with John Elway when we go to Denver.
Oh, really? Yeah. Send him the flea flicker, baby, with Joey D and Timmy B,
Yeah.
and be like, yo, like this guy predicted the Jags would go 1-15.
How do you think your team is doing in the offseason?
Oh, dog shit. Oh man, but good stuff, Timmy B. Let's keep it going, and next week we'll be back at it with the NFC West. So thank you to the gentle listeners out there.
Absolutely, and everybody, we wish you a great day, and we will see you very soon.